good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're listening to this. This is David Theus with Northeast Florida Business Alliance, the Alliance, and we are coming to you with another Alliance member spotlight. I'm joined with Dr. Renee Pleasant here. In just a moment, we'll tell you about who she is. But Northeast Florida Business Alliance, the Alliance, we like to say, and the Small Business Patriot newsletter. So if you're watching us today on YouTube, please, you know the drill, subscribe and like us and share us with a colleague or friend or a fellow co-worker or someone in your organization or maybe a company that needs some help. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, do the same. Listen to us and share us and like us and subscribe and all those good things. So enough programming homework for the day. Again, my name is David Theus. I'm your host, and today's guest is Dr. Renee Pleasant with Pleasant Leadership Consulting, where inspiring leadership freedom. Good morning, Renee. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good for Saturday morning. I say this all the time, but just so we're small business owners. Sometimes I don't like saying small business, but the government actually says small businesses are defined by 500 or less employees, I believe it is, which is crazy. If you were a small business owner and you had 500 employees, of course, we'd have to hire Dr. Renee because we'd need some leadership help for sure. And we'll get into that. But most of our folks are one-person shops, and we've got some folks that have as many as maybe 30 or 40 employees in our group. But small business owners are the heartbeat of America. You know, it's decreasing recently, but we account for about 60% of the employment in the United States, of new jobs and employment. And you probably have a small business owner as a neighbor to the left of you or to the right or across the street. Maybe you don't even know it. Some of them are just well disguised as one-person shops, and they work from their home or home office, wherever, and they're involved in commerce, in free market, in commerce. So anyway, pretty important folks, I think. We got to preserve us and keep us to keep America great. So, Dr. Renee Pleasant, you're the guest today, and we want to talk about, learn more about you. And I know you're kind of new to our group, relatively so, and we've become fast friends because this is a subject matter I love, leadership, and something I kind of cut my teeth on early on. But you're the guest, so give us a little bit. The format is simple. Who are you? What do you do? And most important for me is why. So give us a little take on who Renee is.
Okay. I'm Dr. Renee Pleasant of Pleasant Leadership Consulting, where we inspire your leadership freedom. And so what I am is a leadership coach and a business consultant. And so that's just a fancy way of saying that I help leaders become better leaders. And I do that by helping you stay focused on your vision and your purpose for being a leader. So if you have any obstacle, and well, what business owner doesn't have an obstacle? I help you remove that obstacle so you can continue to make your widget or provide your service. So an example of that could be that I've helped business owners write handbooks, employee handbooks. I've helped business owners with dress codes because they've had some employees come in with inappropriate dress codes. I've helped employers find the great next talent in their organization. So I do anything that helps them to stay focused on pursuing their vision, crushing their goals. And the reason why I do it is, well, because I think everybody is a leader, and I think that they have the potential to influence others, and to be able to bring that out in other people, that is the greatest gift ever.
I think you're kind of passionate about this. This is good.
Just a little bit.
Okay, good. You know, as again, back to small business guys and gals, so many of us started off in some form of being hired or an employee. Some of us were born right out of the womb in business, but most of us started off with an organization, a large organization or whatever size, and you were probably hired, and you had some interface with your hiring manager, for example, and then you got a phone call or an email and said, listen, HR is going to reach out to you and you're going to do some onboarding. And then there would be this process where you would fill out your W-2 and, you know, go ahead and claim your healthcare benefits. And then you'd sit in front of this HR team and they would give you the employee handbook. These are our policies, and you'd have to sign an initial that you're not going to come to work and in some inappropriate wear of clothing, and you're going to have to use the internet appropriate. All those sort of policy things that HR are famous for doing. Um, and then you would get your assignment in your seat, and you'd go to work, and someone else would come in and start telling you about your job description and all those things you're going to do. As a small business owner, a lot of times as we grow our business, that person is the guy who had the idea and founded it, and he or she's opening the door, sweeping. I always say sweeping up at night, the last one to be there. So the efficiencies are really tested on that leader. It takes them away from the thing they do best in the marketplace in front of their customers. So help give us you've give us a broad view. First of all, how did you get into this? What was your moment that said, "Wow, there's a need for this. What's going on?"
That would be 20 years as a school administrator, making many, many mistakes. So
Mistakes are good, by the way. We learn from mistakes,
they
hopefully.
are great teachers. So I worked in the public education as well as private education, and public education was a gift because all the procedures were in place. But when you move into private education, you are building the plane as you're flying. And so, as head of school, you are, and the resources, well, you are the resource. There is nobody there. So you have to you're building the plane as you're flying. And so you have to create all the policies. And if there's a problem, you have to fix it. And so through the years, I learned, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do things. There's got to be a better way to do things. And so I started creating my arsenal. Next year I want to do this better. Next year I want to do this better. Or, oh, that's a unique situation. How does one handle that situation? And so when I left the field of education, and I'd earned my doctorate, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? I looked back on all my years of experience, and I saw the common pattern of leadership. And I decided I wanted to go out and coach other leaders on how to be better leaders. And so whether that's through the HR venue, whether that's in mentoring, whether that is in professional development, all those things came through. And so I took all those years of practice, all those years of mistakes, all those forms I created, and I compiled it into Pleasant Leadership Consulting. And now small and medium-sized businesses get to benefit from my years of experience, and it helps everybody now.
Okay. Something in my past in the financial services in my advisory role that I discovered about money management is it's really not a DNA or a gene thing that's passed from parents to children. It has to be modeled. It has to be to seen and demonstrated early on, in fact. And unfortunately, that's a whole nother topic, but it has to be modeled. And so leadership, I think, is one of those things. There's probably maybe a gene that transfers somewhat, but I mean, I've met some people that were incredible leaders. You could see them even at a youthful age. But you're talking about, I think it's modeling. So what you bring to the table is the ability to demonstrate through all your experience, good, bad, and indifferent, and all those learning experiences, how things should be done versus how they shouldn't be done. But talk to us a little bit, if you don't mind, about how the progression of leadership happens. I mean, do you see people that are just natural born leaders? People say that all the time, but what's your experience revealed about those natural born leaders, and where do they get it from, and how do you develop and groom or model future leaders? What practices might you use, or what are you seeing or discovering?
Well, I think that you first, before you can lead anybody else, you have to lead yourself. And so, while I primarily, my ideal client is a small or medium-sized business owner, I can also work with their followers as well. So if you have someone who needs a professional development plan, or if there's a follower out there who just wants to maybe rise to the next level for a career advancement, I can work with them as well. So if you are looking to increase your leadership, whatever the scope, looking for a career advancement or to lead a team or mid-management, you first have to lead yourself. So that involves setting goals. So I'm a big proponent of SMART goals. So it's amazing how few people struggle with that. And whether you're a health coach, you can attest to that. I mean, we all probably don't want to.
You people. What do you mean, you people?
I start with me. I'm starting with myself. I'm not pointing fingers. So it's starting with goals and, defining those goals. So many goals are unmet because they were not clearly defined and they didn't have the steps clearly articulated on how to get there. So that if you don't know where you're going and you don't know how to get there, you're not going to reach your goal. You're going to be off course. So we start with vision casting. What are our objectives? What is the goal that we want to set forth? How are we going to get there? We plot the course together and we travel alongside. I'm a big proponent of coaching, obviously as a leadership coach, but regardless of what area of life you need, if you need a health coach, if you need someone in your personal life, I don't think we're meant to go through life alone. I think we're meant to be relational, and whether it's you pairing up with me or with someone else, it's easier to do things together than it is alone, because you're going to need accountability buddy. It's really easy to convince ourselves that we're going to do something and then talk ourselves out or to justify ourselves why we didn't do something or make to justify a poor choice when we should have done something else. So by having a leadership coach, I have the ability to encourage you, to direct you in the right path. And if you go off course a little bit, it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. It's a new choice, and we get right back on track. So whether we first, as a leader, I have to check to make sure the leader is able to lead themselves. And if that's the case, then we're good. And then we can work on leading the other people. But sometimes I need to know that the vision is clearly defined and that's communicated to everyone involved. So that's usually discovered in the first initial meeting with them. Because sometimes I find that, especially small and medium-sized business owners, they have so many things going on in their head, and it's running at like the Daytona 500. That while they know what they want to do, they have not got it from here to here.
Yes.
And so their people don't know what they want, and they get so frustrated. So it's a communication problem. It's not a vision problem. It's just a communication problem, which is a different fix. So it's just sometimes having an outsider coming in and just deciphering, having a fresh perspective and a new point of view to come in.
I think that you just nailed the ultimate problem, at least for me personally. I know there's oftentimes I don't want to lift myself up. I consider myself kind of a visionary, strategic person thinking. So I'm hovering around 10, 15,000 feet all the time, which has been somewhat detrimental to me in my business career from the standpoint. Sometimes you got to be on the ground hunting rabbits, and I've been a little bit up in the safari tent looking for elephants. But then on the flip side of that, my strength is that project-based business, and to be able to see 3, 4, 5 years in advance. And so as long as I'm in the right space, it's been very productive. And thankfully I've been more of that than not. But oftentimes I know in my life and my career, and especially even with Northeast Florida Business Alliance, I look around, I'm like, can't you see what we're trying to do here, folks? I mean, get on board. How many more times do I have to think about this? I don't necessarily, I don't communicate it very well. And so that's a challenge that I myself am in check, and I've realized, like a good preacher, sometimes you have to repeat the thing from the pulpit that you said, because they weren't listening. Those people weren't listening the first time, and it's frustrating as a small business person who's got so many plates in the air and so many tasks that need to, and a lot of it's deadline oriented, meaning because you're so stretched with resources and everything seems like it's like due tomorrow. And that's probably part of that feeds me. I don't know if you experienced that, but part of that anxiety of knowing I got to get this done. And
Exhilarating.
yeah, it's like a roller coaster ride. But as I get older, I'm starting to realize that, yeah, that fix, that high is cool and all, but I don't want to keep doing that. I don't want to keep putting myself in that position. So I'm getting better at delegating. I'm getting better at communicating instead of keeping it so close to my chest. So yeah, that is a challenge for us small business owners because we're the ones that have the vision, have the original idea, have the concept, know in our mind at least how we envision it, but then we're not good at deploying, delegating. We're not good at sharing it. We're not good at entrusting others. That's a big one, entrusting others, because we know they're not going to work as hard as I am, which is another challenge because they don't own it. It's yours. And who I hear that, we're not in similar fields. I do some coaching as well. And the one thing I hear from people is, I can't ever find anyone that wants to work as hard as I do. I'm like, well, they don't own it. Cut them in for a piece of the pie. See how that works.
So the key is to find people who complement you. So David, you said that you're really good with the vision, but maybe not so good with those little details. So what you do, and I can help you with that,
Okay.
is you find people who have those complementary skills. So if you're strong in this area, then you find somebody who is strong in your blind spot. And then you end up with this dream team. And I and other coaches can help you with that. So, you find somebody who, hey, this is where I'm strong, but this is where I need a little help with. And so we find you your inner team to make your dream team. And then we find the candidates within your team or outside to build you up. So that takes a lot of that burden off and takes that stress off your chest. And then you can delegate with assurance and authority to person A or to person B on your team, and know that those things are done because they shared the vision with you. And then they have the skill set because you vetted them and their talents and their natural skills are complementary to you. So where it's your blind spot, it is their strength. And now you have a rhythm that is flowing, that is, oh my goodness, like your business is going to take off like you've never seen before. And so your days, you've gone from stressed to blessed. And, watch out, because your P&L is just about to take off. And in your days, you're about to enjoy them because you don't have to worry about all the things that are floating around up here, because now you've got this person, this person, this person. And they're thriving because it's things that they like to do.
They like it too. Yeah. No,
they
I
love
get it.
And that's when I get excited, because I plug in people into tasks that they love. They're not doing the mundane things that they don't like in the job description. They're actually doing things that fits their personality, that fits their job description. Their job description fits their personality. It fits their likes.
So they're the square peg in the square hole versus the square peg in the round hole now.
And everybody's happy.
That's amazing.
No turnover.
Well, it's oftentimes when a corporation or a company or a small group, whatever it is, they tend to look at hires as I say, butts in the seats. I just need to get a body, and if I could just get a body, then I can, sort of forcing them to understand what we're doing. But you're so right. We're all different people, right? We all like different things and things that get us motivated, and how we're motivated is often very different from one another. So I'm on board with what you're saying. If you can find someone that matches up, not just the job description. The job description is kind of a blanket approach, but you dig in. I'm assuming you dig into their kind of mindset and say, okay, you like to do this type of work. You don't like to do this work. For example, I have a very good mentor friend of mine, and I knew this to be true, but he has a way of just putting things in very simple language for me because I need simple. And he says, Dave, there's two people in the world: those who need to be managed and those who don't. And the ones that don't need to be managed, you damn sure piss them off if you try to manage them. And so when he said that, I was like, oh my God, that's my whole life. I don't need to be managed personally. Of course, my wife does that for me. But and I don't like it, but I love her so much. Anyway, so
good thing.
I'm gonna get I'm in trouble most of my days. But anyway, so when he said that, it just put it in such simplicity that Oh my gosh, how many times have we tried to manage people that don't need to be managed if we just let the reins go and give them some insight and where they're headed? What kind of flourish would we see from them? And that's what you're talking about. Your P&L would just go through the roof. Well, the profit side of it.
Yeah.
So so that's a skill set you bring to the table. That's your wheelhouse to help employers, companies identify the talent they need to fit the hole that fit the gap that they've got in their organization, and then release the hounds, so to speak. That's what you're talking about?
Yep.
All right, small business owners and business owners and organizations, listen to that because we're all, as people, we're different. I mean, we truly are. Each one of us, either we kind of look similar in the way we're structured. There's a lot of things going on inside. And if we could take, I think it speaks volumes too to the employee, the new hire, that you're actually taking the time to understand me and put me not on a pedestal, but to put me focus first and say, I really want to find out what makes you tick so that we can allow you to do that and then bring that talent and skill set to our organization to help us prosper. That's a good relationship, isn't it?
I mean, I think that I just did a presentation last week. 1/3 of the prospective new hires will leave the perfect job or decline a perfect job because the work culture doesn't fit. I mean,
Yeah.
what let's promote that in our job description. Let's recruit intentionally based upon our work culture. Let's recruit what we want, you know. Let's
Huh.
build.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but I spent my first 15 years of my career in the furniture business
Mhm.
for contract office furniture. And I was an independent contractor, but one of the firms that we represented was a filing company owned by Herman Miller. And Herman Miller, if you aren't aware of this, is the king of design as far as modern furniture we know today, the Eames, Charles and Ray Eames, and really ergonomics. The idea of ergonomics and ethos in the workspace came from Herman Miller. And so you just put something in my head. For years we talked about productivity in the office space and how do we maximize productivity, whether it be systems, furniture, seating and design, ergonomics, and they really put all the emphasis. It's interesting. They put all the emphasis on ergonomics and ethos. And what they were saying was, if I'm comfortable, properly positioned in posture in my seating, and I'm not, I'm doing my task, keyboarding, and I'm not putting myself in a situation that's going to cause me a lot of pain, I'm going to be more productive. Point taken. If I can create my ethos, my living space, you go into a large corporation and see these office cubicles and people have got all their personal, one guy's an Alabama fan or a Florida fan, and they got all this swag and stuff all over the place. Well, Herman Miller believed we could make them feel at home, so to speak. That's the ethos, that living space. Then they're going to be even more productive as well. But I don't know that we ever talked about lining up their skills and their personality issues with the job. It was always ergonomics. It was always body, kinesiology, whatever that word is, about your body movement and that sort of stuff. It never really tapped into this space. That's interesting. So you can't. Maybe you need both. You need ergonomics from the function of our bodies in the workplace, but you also need to be the right peg in the right hole. That would be nice. Huh. Made me think there for a minute, Renee. Wow.
And on a Saturday morning.
I know, and I've only got half a pot of coffee in me. So, all right. Well, that's actually brings some closure for me. That's actually pretty cool. All right, let's get around a little bit here. Um, I did some snooping on you, so I wanna.
Ooh.
Well, it's good stuff. I wanna give me before I move on, the goal. You brought up having, we've all been textbook learned on how do you define a goal? What are some of the elements that make a good goal? This isn't a test, by the way. This is just whatever you say, I'm gonna believe you.
I believe in SMART goals.
Okay.
Okay,
What does
so
that mean?
they have to be specific, measurable, attainable, relative, and they have to be time bound.
Okay. I understand the acronym and I remember that one. I think mine was always defined, attainable, measurable, and realistic. I was sharing with someone the other day that I have a goal next year. I'm 6'4", 260 pounds, 258 pounds now. And my goal for next year is to play center for the LA Lakers. Is it definable? Is it attainable? Probably not. Is it measurable? It's measurable. And is it realistic? No. And what would be a better goal under that context for me? It would, the LA Lakers. And so the conversation went on. You probably know where we're having this conversation, by the way. And so the more realistic goal was I'd like to go see the Lakers play. And so that would be realistic. Measurable, it's about 3,500 miles to get there. Attainable, I'd have to save a little extra money to pay for the probably $3,000 round trip, all the money it would spend. And it's defined. So that would be a more realistic goal than for me to play center for the Lakers next year. So I think oftentimes as small business owners and anyone, personalities, whatever, there's a tendency where I want to lose 100 pounds next year or whatever it is. That's important for us to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, look, let's get realistic. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but let's be realistic, because the worst thing is to set these unattainable goals and then fail and you're back to square one, right? Or even further backwards. So
I agree.
that's a hard lesson to learn sometimes, because we have such aspirations and we're energized, but sometimes we're not realistic. That applies to everything, finances and everything. Okay. You said we talked about new hire training. That was important. I like that. I'm trying to decide which one I want to do first. I think the core values. You mentioned in your website core values of faithfulness, integrity, loyalty, honesty, and perseverance. The one that stuck out for me, if you don't mind sharing just a little bit about your concept on what are you seeing in the marketplace regarding loyalty? What does it mean? What does it mean as far as your core values? First of all, I guess help us define that, and then we'll.
All right, so I am a 55-year-old woman, and so loyalty has changed a lot. The definition of loyalty has changed immensely for me. And well, I don't think that I'm old by any means.
No, you are not.
The definition has changed so much that it makes me feel old, because, I don't know. So here's my opinion.
Okay.
This is my opinion. I feel that in our world today, loyalty is defined in a singular sense, that loyalty only pertains to an individual. I feel that our world today is very guarded. I feel that our world only looks out for the interest of an individual, and not even. So if we look at the corporate world or a small business, and I can tell you from working with small businesses, when I had a mediation between a leader and a follower, and the follower was showing unprofessional behavior, and the leader had did all the things that they knew to do. They followed the employee handbook and was still not having a change of behavior with the follower, but did not want to let the follower go because of hard times, and felt sympathetic towards the follower. So I went and I spoke with the follower, and the follower basically said, I'm going to do me. I'm going to do me. And, if they don't like it, too bad. And had no, so basically the underlying message was I was going to be loyal to me, and not even taking into consideration that the leader was well within their rights to suspend the employee without pay, to terminate the employee, to do all these things, and basically have this person without a sense of income, but chose to bring me in as an extra step outside of the handbook to mediate and to bring about peace in the work environment. And the sense was that the follower felt that the employer, the leader, needed to do the apologizing and to do the restitution. And so I was trying to make just little little steps of progress, little perspective changes, and it's harder and harder to make those perception shifts and just make those changes. And now keep in mind, I've had 20 years in education, so I have seen this progression.
Right.
So this is not new to me in the business world. I have seen it coming up, and I've tried to make my difference in the world of education, working with parents, working with students, working with teachers. So I'm not surprised, but I'm really in the business world seeing the ramifications of that, and it breaks my heart. Now that is not my definition of loyalty. I am still 55 years old, and I'm still old school. Loyalty means saying something and honoring that commitment, even if it is to your disadvantage. Like if you say you're going to be somewhere and you have a conflict, you honor what your spoken word was.
Right.
And loyalty means that you are true to your company, you know. So it breaks my heart that there's no unity, that the sense of loyalty that I see is actually dividing us, because disloyalty to self is actually, I find it very divisive. That's what I'm seeing. Are you seeing anything similar to that?
Yeah. The what's the old there's no I in team.
Yes.
What I'm discovering is there's no team in I. I mean, it's this is entirely another podcast, by the way, which I don't want to we could labor this for maybe a whole episode or series. But there is a societal shift, and I talk about this in circles that I travel in, with much with much scotch and cigars, as I say. But no, it's a problem. Yeah, is it one of those that goes back to being modeled from home and that sort of thing? Yeah, there's probably some of that or a lot of that. We're just looking at a paradigm shift. That's a big fancy word in the business world. A paradigm shift where trends have changed and ideals, mores, all those sort of things that shape a society have really changed, and we can point fingers at what elements are causing and affecting that, and probably not miss the mark too much. But the bottom line is it's changing, and I don't think it's a good thing, because I think even though small business people, I talk about this all the time, we're really lone wolves. I mean, the reason you leave a corporation is because you either believe you can do it better, provide a better product, a better service, or you need to take care of your family. You got some sort of special needs you need to work a schedule around. Those are kind of the principles that I believe that and they just feel like, I don't know, there's big egos or whatever it is, but you just feel like you can do it, and by God, I want to do it. And I want to realize my true value. That's part of the leading thing. I want to get paid for what I do. So you've got a mindset from a small business person that kind of sets up with a me, 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 but the reality is they know that they can't get things done without a team. And I see it, even in my coaching with sports in football, that I do on a volunteer basis every once in a while. It's parental in its origin. There's we thought the baby boomers were, and maybe that's my wife talks about that all the time. That generation, the me generation, and I'm into the baby boomers. So I don't know. I think it's a problem. I don't want to labor this too much, but I thought I wanted to get your take on your concept of loyalty, and you and I are in the same boat. We're of similar ilk as far as age. I got a couple years on you.
Mhm.
So we're general. Okay, you know the word I'm looking for.
Generational.
Yeah, thank you. So we're in that space that we've traveled the same circles or similar to it. I don't know, as a nation, as a small business, as a corporate entity moving forward, we need loyalty. I don't
Yes.
think it's a bad thing. Um, I think what happens in the workplace is people maybe abuse the relationship, and that's what turns people off. You become indentured servants. My dad used to say, you're well, anyway.
Mhm.
So anytime there's abuse is where problems get off the rails. But we definitely need loyalty, and it hurts because as soon as someone sniffs out something better they perceive as something better, they're gone. And all they're doing is cutting off their nose to spite themselves. So anyway.
But I think David, I think that mentality is just indicative of immaturity. When you think that the grass is greener, that is so indicative of just, it's just youth, or not youth, it's just immaturity. Because
Well,
when you've been around the block a couple of times, you realize it's not really,
well,
it's
I
not
can
really
mark
greener.
I can strike that up to adolescence and immaturity, whatever you want to, but we're supposed to get mature, and I'm seeing it in people that are, when does it happen? Maybe it's this whole generation that, God forbid, this lived in mom and dad's basement for so long, and they just haven't grown out of it. I don't know. I don't want to get into that discussion, but uh, you know, we learn to walk by the time you're 1 years old, roughly, 9 months to 1 year old, you're walking. So maybe they're not walking yet, and it's just they haven't come to that maturation process where they realize that loyalty is not a bad thing. It's just about me. It's catching up. I mean, 30, 40, there's people out there our age that are doing the same stuff. So I don't know, it's frustrating, and it's one of those things that drives me nuts to see happen. But you can't get labored into it because you got to go on with what you got to do. You got to pick up your stuff and keep moving. All right. Don't get me started. But I started that, so that was my fault. All right. Well, that helps me understand that. Okay. So I do want to ask one more question off your website. And I think we covered it in the pre-show to make sure I don't get myself in trouble, but, um, developing women leaders, what are you seeing in the marketplace? Um, I mean, you're obviously a female, in today's world, that's sometimes hard to identify. I'm assuming you're a female.
I am.
Okay, good. My assumption is correct. So, just so everybody knows, I often carry a shovel with me when I'm walking around because that way I can dig big holes on my own. But anyway, not to get off the sidetrack, what are you seeing in your space as far as developing women leaders, and what challenges maybe, or what's going on?
So, again, my opinion, I feel like we are, for as much progress as we are making, there still remains gaps for equality with women. I'm honored to be a woman-owned business, and you will see in all my hashtags, I proclaim that, because I think it's important to announce that. Not that it gets me anything extra, but I just announced that. There is still a large disproportionate number of women who are pursuing higher degrees. There's a large number of misrepresentation of women in the executive level positions in the larger corporations, and there's unfortunately still remains a gap in the salaries between male and female executives. So I do hold a workshop for that, and it's not to bash men. It's not a male versus female bashing by any means. What it is I think sometimes, and I'm not, please don't hear what I'm not saying here. Please don't hear what I'm not saying.
Okay.
I feel that sometimes women don't actually promote themselves in the interview process. I don't feel like because God made us differently, and I feel that our personalities are differently. So when it comes to the interview, we're not as assertive in talking about our achievements. We're not as assertive in pursuing extra courses and to do extra things. And so when we interview, we're interviewing differently, and so we don't come across as maybe the best candidate for men. So that workshop that I offer, so while it may appear that I'm maybe favoring one gender over another gender, it's to help even the playing field a little bit, because there is such a substantial gap for women achieving those C-suite positions. And will it make a difference? I don't know. Only one woman at a time will know, but it can't hurt. It can't hurt. We need more women achieving doctorate degrees. We need more women in higher positions, and we need more women being more assertive, not aggressive. There's a difference. Being more assertive about owning their credentials and pursuing extra certifications.
Okay. Very good. I want to weigh in slightly at the, and you did a very nice job of what I call fencing the table, so to speak, that you're not bashing, and I want to hopefully do as half eloquently as you did. I'm not bashing either. I just think, again, at my 10, 15,000 foot level, societal wise, men go, go back to time of war. It was just natural that women stayed home, women and children stayed home, and the men went off to war. There's a comedian that says, I don't know what it is with you guys, but as soon as the boat decides it's going to sink, it's always women and children first, and us men stay behind. All those elements play into this kind of discussion, I think, from a societal modeling, if you will. Oftentimes when you're being hired, you're a female being hired, you're sitting across the table from a man who's in control, or at least has a voice, a superior or a leadership voice in the hiring process, and that jades the equation, I think, sometimes. I often say, in my furniture business, I worked surrounded by interior designers and women across the board, and I got to see firsthand the level of multitasking and skill that they bring to the equation. That I would, if I had a corporation, I would hire lots more women than men, because they get stuff done, and to put it on a very basic level, not to make everybody worker bees, but they're leaders and getting things done, and so that they go about work differently than men do.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, I think we're gonna have to, as you mentioned, get more females in higher education, at least acquiring more education, as that's a bad way of saying it, more accreditation, or I don't know what the word is, but we need more women that own companies. And the way the shift that's going to happen is we're going to see women hiring women. Now, I've worked with some assertive women, and I've worked with some aggressive women, and that's a whole nother podcast of as well. I just think I always take everything back to the playground. My whole life is I sum up people on the playground. Um, and you either play well in the sandbox with others or you don't. And so if it's my sandbox and someone wants to, get into the sandbox, I have to let them in. And if I don't let them in, they figure out a way to force their way in. And sometimes the more than assertive, aggressive women, in my experience, have really gone about it the wrong way,
Mhm.
which rubbed the guy wrong, and maybe it was my fault because I didn't take into consideration the things that the struggles she's trying to get into the sandbox, and I should be a little bit more open to that. So I don't know. There's a whole dichotomy of things going on that's bigger than the both of us. But I I don't have a problem with females being a part of the workplace. In fact, like I said, I would hire, I don't know, 10 to 1. I would hire probably more females. Anyway, I know it is a challenge though, because I see it all the time. I hear in the workplace, I hear females not getting along with other females. That's the part that drives me crazy, is that let me say this last thing and I'll wrap up on this. Men have a way of, we may not like each other, but there's something about us being able to tell one another off. We can tell someone to go pound sand, almost come to fisticuffs, and then it's like, okay, he made his point. I get it. I understand. There's the pecking order. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go do my job. But women have a problem doing that. Um,
Yeah.
y- you got any
Men
insight on
can
that?
men can compartmentalize much better than females. I will give you that.
Yeah,
Um, and
and
that's
it's more
why
personal.
I have workshops on communication,
Okay.
communication in the workplace, because
Well, I'm going to leave this subject up to you. I just wanted to, because I don't know what I'm talking about at the end of the day. I'll get myself in more trouble, but I just think it's interesting. I am a believer that we're all created in God's image. Um, the whole, I think women have a place in the workplace and leadership role and ownership role, and I'm no better than they are. So I'm going to stop talking about it. So anyway, let's move on. All right, do me a favor. This is the hardest part of the episode to be done. Before we move into this next closing kind of mindset, is there anything we're going to put your website address, your email address, And you gave me a phone number as well that people can reach out to you. Okay, so we're gonna have that in the show notes in case somebody wants to reach out to Renee and get a free consultation to a discovery call. Is there anything else in closing that now that we've had this discussion, you want to wrap up, and then I'm going to go to my close?
Can I put one plug in for training on the train?
Yeah, do that. Do that piece of it since it's tied to what you do, but I want to talk about the train too. Go ahead.
Okay, so I offer a really unique service for anyone who's interested. If you would like a professional development that's off your site, I offer a training on the train. You would leave from Kingsland Station, which is about a mile. I'm sorry, not a mile.
That's close.
An hour away from Clay County in Kingsland, Georgia. And then you would board onto a passenger car and you travel to St. Mary's, Georgia. You don't get off the train. And then we come back. So I can do any workshop that I offer on my website, or I can do your training. And if you don't want to do a train ride, we have a theater inside, and I can do seating up to 300 people inside the Kingsland Station. And if you want amenities like snacks and things like that, we can add that. But it's amazing. Most people have never ridden on a train, so they can put that off, check on their bucket list.
That sounds so cool, and we're gonna book one of those with you guys as a group. That's gonna be one of our excursions. Does it do a loop, or does it do one of those things where you go up and move the locomotive around or something? How does it?
Yeah, the locomotive does a switchback.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, I can remember I was 20 years old. I lived abroad in London for a year from the 20 to 21. And I got to, there's so many, when you travel abroad, there's so many firsts that happen. So we flew out of Newark, New Jersey, but my buddy that I was traveling with, his grandfather lived in New York City. Anyway, New York City. And so we're riding, we get off the plane and I'm on a commuter, a train, not an L, but it's a train. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, huh, I've never been on a train before. This is my first train ride. I'm like, they're looking at me like, really? I'm like, this is a train, right? It was so bizarre. And so, of course, living abroad in Europe, you're on trains all the time. But what a cool experience to give us a quick snippet. We got a little bit of time, real quick. How did you get into this idea?
My husband is a professional railroader, and so I met the guys through him, and we just clicked. And actually, I'm a partner through that railroad, and so it just was a natural osmosis of businesses. So that's a real quick.
Do you find yourself singing, I've been working on the rail?
No.
Now I'm going to see you, and I'm going to hum that all the time. That's pretty cool. All right. Sorry, I'd get myself into a lot of trouble. All right, so here's the alliance plug, if you will. So you're relatively, I think you're maybe one of our newest members, and you've been with us. Is it a month anniversary yet? Maybe close to that. So I'm not going to push you real hard, but I mean, you're someone who I think gets it, and that's been something of a discovery on my part to try to find people that get it, and it's challenging. But can you just gracefully share a few comments of what is your take from Northeast Florida Business Alliance, the Alliance? What is it you think that you're garnering from it and that you see that we do that's somewhat different? Please.
Sure. So I've been going, I guess maybe 1 or 2 months now. But I can tell you, I have already met more professionals. I've connected with more professionals than I have than any other venue where I've met. And so already my mental Rolodex has expounded so much. But I think it was probably the last after hours connection that I went to. So we were in Green Cove and at Reds, and I met a lady, and she brought her husband along, and through the whole evening it was great. I'm adding to my mental Rolodex of people that I could outsource or I might need to call upon, or I could refer my clients to. And at the end of the evening, he actually ends up being a fabulous resource to one of my other business, the train business that I'm a partner in. And we met the following week. We had a couples date, and he ends up being a huge resource to me. So you just never know who you're going to meet and what wealth of information they're going to be to you in your line of work. I have had nothing but supportive professionals that have just been so willing to share my page post or to connect me with other individuals. And I cannot, of all my groups, this group has been the most profitable. And I don't mean that in money sense. I mean that as in encouragement, mentorship, as in just resources to me that have helped me grow my business, pick me up on days when it's not just a stellar day, but they just know because they do life with you, and they just send you a quick text or a Facebook message. And that is rich for just 2 months.
Okay. I gush when I hear this stuff, and I know it's truly, this is, you talk about finding the square peg in the square hole. This is it for me. I mean, this is where I really find excitement, is about helping others be prosperous, helping others be profitable and grow their business, but not just about the metrics of it, they're putting more cash in their pocket, but the things that allow you to get there. And life, I often say life happens, and I believe we should be a member of a community, and so oftentimes, and we've got to come up, maybe I'm going to invent a word versus networking, but so oftentimes in these other organizations, it's so profit for
Can
this, well, it's can, but I mean profit for the sake of profit, PROFIT, dollars and cents minded, that we lose sight of the fact that there's people behind these entities. And if we don't understand the fellow humans, that they have cares and needs too, and then as you mentioned so nicely, that sometimes you walk into one of these meetings and you're expecting to get, I'm a leadership coach, I need to get you to book a session with me so I can, $96 for the year is what Theus charged me. $96. I got to make my ROI. So I'm going to need I don't know what you charge, but I'm going to need an eighth of a session to get my money back. And so what you've discovered though is, and we could probably do the dollars and cents on what this relationship, this meet has turned around to be, because this litigious society we live in, you could be avoiding some sort of liability, or who knows what down the road. And what's that worth? I mean, that could be huge, could be a good thing. So you just never know where it's going to lead you. And that's what I really pride us about, is the people that get it are starting to see that there's so much more below the surface, but it takes time, and it takes a willingness to be humble. It takes a willingness to be vulnerable, to expose a little bit of yourself to someone else that might be, willing to help. And it takes the other person willingness to help. So, thank you for sharing that. It gets me excited that my vision at 15,000 foot is down on the street working. And I just got to get better at, and maybe this is how we do it. Maybe I just ask you to tell a brief story about how it's affected you. And that way I'm not preaching it. It's just happening. But thank you so much. And we've only known each other a very short time. And I know that you're someone that I can look to and refer to other folks and to trust, because you get it. And it's a beautiful thing. So I enjoy being around you and having you in our organization. So thank you. Okay. It's a gush fest.
is the
It's good.
eyeball sweat.
It's good though. I mean, this just it makes me happy. So we'll leave it at that. All right. So I think we've gone almost too far. So anyway, thank you so much again, Dr. Renee Pleasant with Pleasant Leadership Consulting, inspiring leadership freedom. I like that a lot. My name again is David Theus, and this is Northeast Florida Business Alliance, the Alliance Member Spotlight. And this is just one of the benefits of being a member for $96 a year. I'll let you do the numbers on that. But join us again for our next time. Be prosperous. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as I always say, stay vigilant. and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Renee.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.